Success is never taken from you in one big moment. It's stolen quietly, day by tiny habits you don't even notice. And if you don't confront them, they will confront your future. Before we begin, let me tell you something important. Your success isn't being blocked by giants. It's being stolen by mosquitoes. Not the big tragedies, not the big failures, not the big mistakes. It's the tiny habits, the ones you repeat daily without thinking, that quietly steal the future you were meant to enjoy. And if you stay with me until the end, you will discover which habits are holding you hostage. And more importantly, how to break free from them starting today. Because once you identify the thieves, you can finally protect the treasure, your future. Small negative habits accumulate faster than most people ever notice. And because they are so small, they often operate in silence. The danger isn't in the one habit you repeat today. It's in the invisible pattern you create when you repeat it every day. Success is not only built by the things you consciously do, it is also destroyed by the things you unconsciously allow. People imagine failure as some dramatic collapse, a moment of crisis or disaster, but that is rarely the case. Failure is usually a slow leak, a quiet erosion of discipline, a gradual surrender to comfort. A person doesn't drift into greatness, they drift into average. Greatness requires intention, but mediocrity requires nothing at all. And that's the trap most people fall into without ever realizing it. Think about how easy it is to repeat a small negative habit. It takes no effort to procrastinate. It takes no effort to skip learning for one day. It takes no effort to waste 20 minutes scrolling endlessly. It takes no effort to choose the comfortable option instead of the right one. These behaviors feel harmless because the consequences are not immediate. You don't gain 20 pounds because of one meal. You don't go broke because of one careless purchase. You don't ruin your career because of one unproductive day. Life does not punish you instantly. Life accumulates evidence quietly and then presents the bill all at once. And that is why small negative habits are dangerous. They accumulate in silence, but explode in results. A person might look at their life after 5 years and wonder, how did I get here? They didn't get there suddenly. They arrived through a long series of tiny daily decisions that never felt serious enough to question. Habits are powerful because they operate on repetition, and repetition creates identity. When you repeat a bad habit, you're not just losing time, you're shaping your character, your mindset, your expectations of yourself. You start believing that this is just how I am, even though it's simply a reflection of what you've been repeatedly doing. Your habits become your mirror. They reflect who you have allowed yourself to become. The truth is, small negative habits often disguise themselves as relief. They give you a short-term comfort that blinds you to long-term consequences. You procrastinate because it feels good not to deal with pressure. You skip important tasks because it saves you from discomfort. You indulge in distractions because they help you escape from responsibility. But every short-term comfort carries a long-term cost. Every time you choose ease over growth, you are training your mind to weaken rather than strengthen. Small habits don't just affect your schedule. They affect your self-respect. When you repeatedly break promises to yourself, even small ones, you lose trust in your own word. And once you lose trust in yourself, it becomes difficult to build anything meaningful. The small habits that steal success also operate with a dangerous feature. They are repeated automatically. You often don't think about them. You reach for your phone without intention. You waste time without noticing. You make excuses without challenge. You delay tasks with a casual later because it feels harmless. And the more often you repeat a behavior without thinking, the more deeply it becomes rooted in your subconscious. Eventually, you're not choosing the habit. The habit is choosing for you. You lose awareness, and the habit gains control. The mind is shaped like clay by repetition. Practice anything long enough, discipline or laziness, and it becomes your default state. That's why you must be careful with small habits. They become the blueprint for your future self. A tiny negative pattern repeated 300 times a year becomes a major setback. A small wasted hour a day becomes 365 hours a year, nearly 10 full work weeks gone. Not because you lacked opportunity, but because you surrendered it little by little. What makes these habits especially dangerous is that they rarely feel urgent. Growth doesn't feel urgent. Learning doesn't feel urgent. Taking action doesn't feel urgent, but neither does losing your potential until it's too late. Success is stolen in silence, not in storms. When you fail to recognize how quickly small missteps compound, you give them permission to multiply. And the longer they continue unnoticed, the harder they become to break. Not because they are powerful, but because they have become familiar. The human mind forms emotional attachments to habits, even harmful ones. For example, procrastination gives temporary relief from stress, so your brain begins to crave it. Complaining gives a moment of emotional discharge, so the mind repeats it. Avoiding tasks gives a feeling of freedom, so you seek it again. These micro rewards reinforce negative patterns, and before long, you're not just repeating a habit, you're depending on it. This is why awareness is the starting point of transformation. You cannot change a habit you don't acknowledge. The moment you become conscious of the small behaviors that drain your potential, you also become capable of reshaping them. A person who is aware instantly becomes more powerful than a person who is simply drifting. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates direction. Direction creates identity. But awareness alone is not enough. You must also take responsibility. Responsibility is the act of reclaiming control over your behavior. It is admitting that your future is not determined by luck, circumstances, or people. It is shaped by what you repeatedly do. When you understand that every small action is a vote for your future, you start treating your habits with seriousness. You begin to see that negative habits don't just steal success. They steal time, energy, focus, self-belief, and opportunities. They steal the person you could have become. Small negative habits also affect your emotional state. They create guilt, stress, and anxiety. They make you feel behind. They constantly remind you of what you should have done, but didn't. This emotional weight becomes a barrier to progress, making you feel overwhelmed before you even begin. The mind becomes cluttered, and when the mind is cluttered, success becomes distant. One small habit repeated long enough can transform a confident person into someone who doubts their own capability, not because they are incapable, but because their habits strip them of momentum. Momentum is one of the most important forces in life. Small positive habits create momentum. Small negative habits destroy it. And once momentum is gone, everything feels harder than it should. That's why your small habits matter more than your big goals. Goals give direction, but habits give progress. And when those habits are sabotaging you quietly, your goals become nothing more than wishes. Small negative habits don't ask for permission. They enter your life quietly, and once they settle in, they demand space. They demand time. They demand repetition. And every time you repeat them, they take a little piece of your future and replace it with regret. Replacing destructive habits with disciplined actions creates a shift so powerful that most people don't recognize its strength until they experience it. Discipline is not loud, dramatic, or flashy. It works quietly, steadily, patiently. It rewires the mind, reshapes behavior, and redefines identity. Destructive habits do the opposite. They provide short-term ease at the expense of long-term growth. Discipline provides short-term effort with the reward of long-term transformation. And the difference between where you are and where you want to be is almost always found in which of those two forces you repeat more often. When a destructive habit shows up, it often feels harmless. It feels like a choice that doesn't matter. But a disciplined action rarely feels harmless. It feels challenging, uncomfortable, or unfamiliar. That is why destructive habits grow without resistance, and disciplined actions require intention. It takes no effort to waste time. It takes effort to use time wisely. It takes no effort to avoid a difficult task. It takes effort to face it. But here's the truth most people forget. The discomfort of discipline is temporary, while the cost of destructive habits is permanent. Replacing a destructive habit doesn't begin with force. It begins with awareness. You cannot replace what you cannot see. Every habit, good or bad, leaves clues. Your energy levels, your progress, your emotional state, your results. These are all reflections of the habits you repeat. Destructive habits drain you subtly. They leave you tired without reason, overwhelmed without productivity, busy without progress. When you examine your day and notice where your time, focus, and energy are leaking, you begin to see which habits are silently sabotaging you. And the moment you see them clearly, you gain the power to replace them. Replacing a destructive habit with discipline is a negotiation between who you are and who you want to become. The present version of you seeks comfort, ease, and relief. The future version of you seeks growth, purpose, and achievement. Discipline is the bridge that connects the present to the future. Every time you choose discipline over a destructive habit, you strengthen the bridge. Every time you choose the destructive habit over discipline, you weaken it. Destructive habits usually operate with an emotional reward. They help you escape, relax, or avoid discomfort. That's why they feel difficult to let go of. But discipline also has an emotional reward. It simply arrives later. At first, discipline feels heavy, but over time, it becomes a source of pride. There is a unique confidence that only comes from doing what you said you would do. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to respect yourself more. You begin to feel capable, not because of luck or talent, but because of consistency. Replacing destructive habits is not just a change in behavior. It's a change in identity. You start to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who grows, someone who demands more from their life. The most powerful way to replace a destructive habit is with a small disciplined action, not a massive overhaul. People often try to change their lives overnight, and when the pressure becomes too heavy, they fall back into the same destructive patterns. But small disciplines are sustainable. They quietly build strength. They accumulate. A 10-minute workout can replace a habit of laziness. 10 minutes of reading can replace a habit of mindless scrolling. A simple to-do list can replace a habit of disorganization. A small disciplined action repeated consistently becomes stronger than the destructive habit it replaces. As you repeat disciplined actions, your mind begins to crave progress instead of comfort. You start noticing differences, subtle at first, then undeniable. You wake up with more energy. You feel more focused. You experience less guilt. You approach challenges with more confidence. These improvements, even if small, create a powerful cycle. Progress creates motivation. Motivation creates more discipline. More discipline replaces more destructive habits. And suddenly, without dramatic announcements or sudden transformations, your entire life begins shifting toward momentum. Even the smallest disciplined action has a ripple effect. When you practice discipline in one area, it spreads to others. You become more intentional with your time, more thoughtful with your choices, more committed to your goals. The mind works like a muscle. The more often you exercise discipline, the stronger it becomes. And as it grows stronger, destructive habits lose their control. They no longer feel comforting, they feel limiting. They no longer feel harmless, they feel costly. Discipline changes your emotional relationship with both your actions and your outcomes. One of the most important things to understand is that discipline isn't about perfection. It's about direction. Every disciplined choice nudges you forward. Every destructive habit pulls you backward. Your life becomes a reflection of which direction you choose more often. The power of discipline lies in its consistency, not its intensity. It's not about doing everything every day. It's about doing something every day. Small steps compound just as powerfully, and often more reliably, than sudden bursts of effort. When you begin replacing destructive habits, you will encounter resistance. The mind is comfortable with repetition, even if the repetition is harmful. The moment you interrupt that pattern, the mind pushes back. It tries to pull you into familiar behavior. This resistance is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that change is happening. Every time you push through it, you weaken the destructive habit and strengthen your discipline. Eventually, what once felt difficult begins to feel natural. What once felt unnatural becomes part of your identity. Replacing destructive habits also requires patience. You cannot expect instant transformation. Just as destructive habits took time to develop, disciplined actions take time to reshape your life. Consistency will always outperform intensity. A slow, steady path will always win over a sudden, unsustainable burst. Discipline grows quietly, beneath the surface, until one day it becomes visible in your results, your mindset, your relationships, and your opportunities. Destructive habits steal potential. Discipline unlocks it. Destructive habits create stagnation. Discipline creates motion. Destructive habits keep you trapped in cycles. Discipline breaks cycles. And the moment you understand that your future depends on which habits you choose to repeat, you begin to take your choices seriously. You begin to protect your time. You begin to value your energy. You begin to act with intention instead of impulse. Replacing destructive habits with disciplined actions is not simply a lifestyle choice. It is a transformation of your direction, your identity, and your future.